Oh, hello trainers, Professor Palm here, and it looks like you caught me in the middle of my hobby, and that of course is paleontology. To be honest, I'm a little bit of a guy obsessed with fossils. After all, some people theorize that some dinosaurs turned into birds, and you know me, I'm a bird person. But yeah, I just dug up this fossil and I'm trying to see what it's gonna become. But I guess that we could talk on some fossil Pokemon. After all, we have a few guests with us right now. Getting a prehistoric Pokemon on my team is amazing. I always jump for joy when I can. To be honest, as a kid, I loved dinosaurs, and as I've grown up, my love for them has never extinguished. But to be honest, we really didn't get dinosaur Pokemon until Generation 4. Back then, prehistoric Pokemon, or as we mainly call them, fossil Pokemon, were based on mainly crustaceans, as we had with these guys. But then in Generation 3, we had them based on plant life as well as prehistoric bug life. So yeah, it took a while till we finally got to prehistoric dinosaurs, but we finally got there. And we got our first dinosaur Pokemon with none other than Cranidos and Sheildon. These are based off some of the most well-known dinosaurs, the Pachycephalosaurus, or the Pachyosaurus, and of course, the Triceratops. Those may not be the number one choice you think of for dinosaurs, but to me, they're dinosaurs, and they made a perfect choice. So today, I have a little bit of an exciting thing to announce. I dug up a Pokemon tooth today. I have no idea what it belongs to, but of course, it's pretty cool that I dug up a fossilized tooth. Maybe I might find a new Pokemon that we have not seen yet. Well, since we're in a bit of a prehistoric fossil-y mood, I think it'd be a great time to talk about some dinosaur Pokemon. And I'm of course talking about the two dinosaurs themselves, Sheildon, and of course its evolution, Bastiodon. Sad to say, we're never going to know what it was like back in the prehistoric times, but taking one of these on your journey is always a great idea. After all, you'll see all the strengths and weaknesses that fossil Pokemon had before they were fossils. After all, these Pokemon came long before us. Respect your elders. I think that these are an incredible line. And before we begin, I want to give a very special thanks to my friend Halo Gaming. You wanted me to do this Pokemon line? Here you go. I hope you enjoy this episode to the fullest. These are some of my favorite fossil Pokemon, and I know that they're yours as well. But of course, you're not the only one that I'm going to be thanking today, Halo Gaming. Techronova, I'd like to give you a very special thanks for my shirt. This one is called The Emperor Within. Since we're talking about steel types today, I have to say, nothing to me screams Sinnoh-Steel more than Empoleon. After all the steel types we're talking about were introduced in the Sinnoh region. Oh, yeah, I also don't have a steel type jersey or a fossil jersey on me at the moment, but I will soon, so I think that this will definitely work very well. And if you really like the shirt, please visit Techronova online. I may not be sponsored by her, but of course I want to give her a special thanks and also wear her incredible shirts. After all, why buy a silly stock image t-shirt when you can give a really talented artist like this good business? Also, you'll look great in this as well. If you chose Piplup as your starter, I hope that Empoleon has served you well over the years, and it still will. Since Sheildon and Bastiodon roamed the earth in the prehistoric times, I think the best way to understand them is to go back 100 million years ago! And this time, we're going to go into defense mode instead of going off for an attack. And the best way to do it is with two shields. And since we have both of them, I think that we're pretty protected from anything that might come our way. So, let's start off with the little shield itself. Shieldon! Shieldon, the shield Pokemon, is based on Triceratops, but its shield-like face specifically represents the Chasmosaurus, which was a cousin of the Triceratops family. About 100 million years ago, in the prehistoric times, Sheildon, just like its counterpart Cranidos, lived in jungles, and similar to Cranidos, Sheildon lived with other Sheildon and Bastiodon because it felt safer being in a pack. Back in the prehistoric times, Sheildon was a mild-mannered herbivore. Yep, this Pokemon's diet back then was nothing but plants and berries. How it got these was pretty smart, as Shieldon would use its shield face as a shovel so it could dig up the roots of a tree and eat them. But if some of the berries were out of reach, these Pokemon didn't like to fight. Instead, they worked smarter instead of harder. What they would do is they would dig out the tree's roots until it fell down, so they could get their easy way to the berries, which is pretty ingenious. Shieldon's face shield was its pride, as these Pokemon hated having a dirty appearance, and they also hated having any chips or any damage to the shield, as it showed weakness. So these Pokemon constantly washed their shields to make them look sharp. How they did this was pretty interesting. They would rub their faces against tree trunks until they were clean as a whistle. Doing this gave them a really tough appearance, as well as made them look pretty sharp. It's speculated that very few enemies would consider challenging a Shieldon. The reason why is because anytime this Pokemon fossil has been dug up, there is never any damage found on its face. These Pokemon that probably challenged it realized how strong it was. As a result, Shieldon could eat grass and berries without having to fight any other prehistoric Pokemon for its food. Shieldon's facial hide is extremely hard that if a diamond makes contact with it, it's the diamond that will shatter into a million pieces. Heck, even a bullet fired at this Pokemon's face won't do any damage to it. Not just because this Pokemon is bulletproof, but instead the bullet will be shattered. That's how strong its face is. Nothing can break through this impenetrable shield. It's possible that as time went on, other predators learned about Shieldon's major weakness, and that, of course, would be its back, as Shieldon lacked any armor there, making it pretty defenseless when being attacked from behind. Also, there's something that kind of proves this, as anytime that a Shieldon fossil has been dug up, we only get the skull and we never see any other part of it. I guess some Pokemon finally realized what the major weakness was and always went for that. While Shieldon may have died as prey, it definitely held its ground for a very long time, and it did so well by masquerading as a predator because of its indestructible face. While many other Pokemon eventually found out its weakness, it definitely looked like an unstoppable force. Shieldon made its anime debut in the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl episode, Ill Will Hunting, where Hunter J and her crew tried to capture a group of 4 of them, where Ash Ketchum and Gary Oak acted as their guardians, protecting Shieldon and foiling Hunter J and her crew's plans. In the manga, Gym Leader Byron managed to save a wild Shieldon from a cave collapse, but he sadly couldn't bond with it, so he gave it to Diamond, who managed to bond with it and evolve it on Iron Island. In the games, when it first appeared, Shieldon was a Pokemon Pearl and a Pokemon Shining Pearl exclusive. Sadly, no gym leaders would really have this Pokemon on their teams, but there were a lot of archaeologists as well as a lot of explorers who would use this Pokemon. And why not? It's a great partner to have, and it does have a lot of defense. Shieldon is one of Gym Leader Byron's favorite steel Pokemon of all time. Before he evolved his into Bastiodon, it was used for many battles against his son, Rourke. Doing this made Rourke more confident and finally made him the gym leader of the Orberg City Gym. If you like using fossil Pokemon competitively, then may I suggest putting a Shieldon on your team? While this Pokemon may not have the best attack, special attack, and speed, mainly because it's a Steel-type Pokemon, definitely it makes up for it in defense and special defense. So if there's a pretty tough opponent out there, put this as your first front line. Yep, because it's a shield and it has so much defense, it'll always be there to protect you whenever you need it. My face is a shield! Sorry, I just had to say it. After all, it is pretty true for Shieldon. This Pokemon has no fear, as anything that goes for its face won't hurt it a bit. But I have to say, being a big defender can also be kind of a pain that it always has to use its face to shield anyone from any attack. But if you want to see what a true power of defense looks like, then let's evolve our little Shieldon. Oh, and did I mention that Shieldon is the earliest evolution of all fossils? Yep, this Pokemon evolves at just level 30, which is pretty quick. But it's time to see the true defensive mode. So let's evolve our little Shieldon into Bastiodon. And trust me, this Pokemon is indestructible. Bastiodon, the shield Pokemon, just like its previous evolution, is based on Triceratops, but the spiky shield face is very reminiscent of the cousin of a Triceratops, the Chasmosaurus. Oh, and if you look very closely at this Pokemon, you'll notice that it has spikes through its nose, which is very reminiscent of other Triceratops that lived back in the prehistoric times. Back in the prehistoric times, over 100 million years ago, Bastiodon lived in the jungles in packs with other Bastiodon and Sheildon. Despite their massive appearance, these Pokemon were gentle giants. When the pack was under attack by other predator Pokemon, Bastiodon would line up side by side and use their faces as shields. You see, their faces were terrifyingly tough, as some paleontologists claim that they were and still are harder than steel. Because they made this defense wall, nothing could get through. The defense wall made by Bastiodon's face wasn't just to show off its strength and to make sure no one else got hurt, but it was also to protect their young. As you see, Bastiodon with young were very protective of them and wanted them to grow up in a very safe environment. Sure that they had a lot of predators, but Bastiodon were always willing to put their faces as well as lives on the line to make sure that the young always grew up and became as strong as them. On an interesting note, some paleontologists theorize that Bastiodon lived in the same area as Rampardos. The main reason for this theory is because their fossils have always been found very close to one another. Also, it seems as if these Pokemon always had a fight to the finish. Because Rampardos was not the smartest Pokemon alive, it would keep fighting, but eventually tire itself out. Because of Bastiodon's indestructible shield and how it would always stand there, Rampardos eventually grew bored and walked away. The bones of Bastiodon's face are so huge and hard that it wasn't until the very first Bastiodon being restored, scientists realized that they mistook this Pokemon's face for its back. If you want to know how strong Bastiodon's face shield is, well, let me put it to you bluntly. It's harder than steel and diamonds combined. Bastiodon can head smash a missile and it would feel no pain. If you threw a grenade at this Pokemon's face, the grenade would blow up and Bastiodon wouldn't even flinch or have any damage on it. Yep, to put it in simple terms, this Pokemon's face shield is indestructible. With this incredible strength that Bastiodon had, it was seen as a very terrifying creature to so many, as it would never back down from a fight, since its face could never be hurt. Also, if any other Pokemon tried to fight it, oftentimes they would be tired out or even overpowered by this Pokemon's incredible defense. Yep, Bastiodon was a force to be reckoned with back in the prehistoric times. However, Bastiodon's tough appearance was just a facade, as they were very docile and gentle Pokemon when not under attack. They were also herbivores that really enjoyed grass and berries, and because they had so few enemies, these Pokemon got to enjoy their food without having to fight for it. While Bastiodon's face and head were completely armored, I guess other predators found the truth that Bastiodon tried to hide, and it's the fact that the rest of its body wasn't. Yep. While its face was completely shielded and indestructible, the rest of its body wasn't. So, instead of going for the head, they went for the body, just like Thor did with Stormbreaker against Thanos. After learning of this weakness, it's easy to see why Bastiodon went extinct. Also, since this Pokemon was carrying a lot of metal on its head, it was not a very fast Pokemon, so getting away from predators wasn't part of the question. So yeah, seeing this Pokemon being not great at attacking, only good with defense in one part, and very little speed, made it easy to go extinct. Bastiodon made its anime debut in the Pokemon Diamond and Pearl Galactic Battles episode, Ancient Family Matters, under the ownership of Gym Leader Byron, who was battling his son Rourke's Rampardos, but the battle was interrupted by Team Rocket before either side could call a victory. In the manga, Diamond himself managed to evolve his Shieldon into a Bastiodon, which helped him get through Iron Island, as well as take on a bunch of Team Rocket grunts alongside Riley. In the games, Bastiodon is the boss Pokemon of Canalave City Gym Leader Byron. He uses this in all of his battles, whether it's the first battle or it's the post-game battles. No matter which way it goes, it always acts as his star Pokemon, and it also helps him with excavation in Iron Island. If you're looking to battle competitively using fossil Pokemon, rock Pokemon, or even steel Pokemon, well, look no further than Bastiodon. Yep, while this Pokemon may not have the highest attack, special attack, as well as speed, it definitely makes up for it with its defense. Oh, and did I ever mention that it has the ability of Sturdy? Yep, this Pokemon will not be knocked out in one hit. So yeah, you can always use this for any battle, and when your shield's down, now your real assault can go. While the shield may not be the strongest thing out there, it's definitely indestructible. And guess what? When your real defense is gone, now your offense begins. When in battle, I have to be honest, I really think Rock and Steel is a terrible typing, as it has a lot of weaknesses, and if you use these Pokemon competitively or in battle, you should be very careful, as Bastiodon and Sheildon alike have 2x4 weaknesses. What are its weaknesses? Well, let's find out. Never use Sheildon and Bastiodon against fighting and ground, being both Bastiodon and Sheildon's ×4 weaknesses. Wow, 2x4 weaknesses, that's pretty bad. And it has one more, but thankfully that's only a ×2 weakness. And their only ×2 weakness, like every other fossil Pokemon, is of course water. Wow, at least this Pokemon only has 3 weaknesses, but 2x4 weaknesses, that's pretty bad. Can they make up for it in strength? Spoiler alert, yes. While Bastiodon and Shieldon have a lot of weaknesses with ×4, they also make up for it in a lot of strengths, doubling their weaknesses, so it's 6. Let's see what these Pokemon are very strong against. Being Steel and Rock type, they're strong against Bug, Rock, Fire, Fairy, Flying, and of course Ice. But being that Sheildon and Bastiodon are both Rock and Steel type, Ice is very weak against these Pokemon. While there are no hybrid attacks, just know that Ice is weak to both Steel and Rock alike. So using these Pokemon against Ice types ensures you a victory. If you're a fan of Steel-type Pokemon, that's great to know. But for me, Steel-type Pokemon always rub me the wrong way, but for an understandable reason. You see, most of the time, Steel-type Pokemon barely learn any Steel-type moves. Thankfully, for Bastiodon and Shieldon's case, that's not the problem. They learn enough Steel-type moves by leveling up. But strangely enough, despite being a Rock and Steel type, these Pokemon barely learn any Rock-type moves other than Ancient Power by leveling up. Any other Rock move you have to give them will be by TM. I guess that proves that before they were fossils, they were pure Steel-type. But since I wasn't back in the prehistoric times, we'll never know the real answer. With the typing of Rock and Steel, they have a lot of weaknesses, as we know. So it's a good thing that both Sheildon and Bastiodon have the ability Sturdy. For those of you who don't know, Sturdy wasn't what it used to be, as it only prevented one-hit KO attacks. Now, what it does is leaves these Pokemon at least with 1 HP left. Yep, so there will never be no OTKOs for these Pokemon. So if they're hit with a super effective attack, they'll always have 1 HP left. And to quote Elton John, when these Pokemon are hurt with only 1 HP, I'm still standing. When in battle, what do you think shows higher strength? Attack? Or do you think it's defense? Well, in Bastiodon and Shieldon's case, it was definitely defense. Since these Pokemon were very strong with their shield faces, they won a lot of fights, as other Pokemon would eventually tire out and flee because they couldn't win the fight. So yeah, these Pokemon barely had a lot of predators on them. After all, their fossils really do show that not only were there no damage to their faces, but a lot of Pokemon were terrified of them. Even though it was just a charade, they really did well to fake it till they made it. Sheildon and Bastiodon weren't the only creatures alive to know how strong their shield faces were. Back in ancient times, there were some soldiers that would excavate these fossils and use them for shields. Yep, so the next time you go to a history museum and you see ancient shields, it might just be a Bastiodon or a Sheildon skull. Triceratops are some of my favorite dinosaurs of all time, so these Pokemon really hold up for me. I was really happy when I learned all about them. I've raised a bunch of them on my team, and let me tell you, while they may have a lot of weaknesses, they're the most loyal Pokemon you could always have from the prehistoric times. Sure, they might have a lot of weakness and they have Sturdy, But having a strong defense is what you always need. After all, if you were about to be attacked, wouldn't you want something with a strong defense to defend you rather than something with a strong offense possibly failing? Well, since these Pokemon are shields, they're without a doubt indestructible. For me, I've always been a fan of shields. After all, Zamazenta is my favorite of the Sword and Shield duo, but I have to say, for the first shield Pokemon, these Pokemon still hold up very well, and anytime I have to go into battle and I have to choose a weapon, I'll always say, I'm going with the shield. Ah, welcome back, trainers. I hope you enjoyed your journey 100 million years ago. Did you learn anything new about these Pokemon? Also, do you think that maybe you'll put them on a team if you want some strong defense? Or are you more of an offense kind of person? Also, do you think that these Pokemon deserve regional variants? Or do you think any fossil Pokemon deserves a regional variant? If they were, what typing do you think they should be? Also, do you think that they should look more like Triceratops or more like Kazasaurus, which they came from? Well, I really would love to hear from you, trainers. Also, one question I want to know is, who is your favorite fossil Pokemon of all time? Well, if you liked what you saw, please leave a like. If you want to answer any of my questions, you want me to talk about another prehistoric Pokemon or another Pokemon line, please comment. And as always, if you liked what you saw and you want to see more, smash that subscribe button. Halo Gaming, I hope you enjoyed this episode to the fullest. It was dedicated to you, my friend. Thanks for watching. Palm out!